Israeli settlers perform rituals at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound under protection from armed forces. Israeli opposition leader launches petition to pressure Netanyahu's government for inquiry into October 7, 2023 attacks. Lebanese army deploys in Rab al-Thalathin, Tallusa and Bani Hayyan after Israeli withdrawal. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Qnews. And we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Local organizations monitoring Israel's detention of Palestinian prisoners reported that Israeli forces arrested approximately 580 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank during January. The highest number of arrests occurred in Jenin and its refugee camp, which have been under heavy Israeli military siege for 21 days. In a statement, the group said that at least 60 children and 17 women were among those detained. Additionally, hundreds more were subjected to field interrogations by Israeli soldiers. Israeli settlers have performed rituals at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound under protection from armed forces. Footage posted by local Palestinian platforms on social media showed settlers present at the site. Israeli media reported that dozens of settlers, including students from religious schools, stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque to commemorate a soldier killed in Gaza. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has announced that in the 2 weeks following the Gaza ceasefire, it provided food aid to 1.2 million people in collaboration with the World Food Programme. UNRWA Chief Philip Lazzarini stated that the organization has opened 10 new shelters to support those returning to northern Gaza, distributing tents, blankets, plastic sheeting and warm clothing as storms and heavy rain persist. The agency, which Israel seeks to dismantle, has also repaired water wells, provided water and waste disposal services for nearly 500,000 people in and around its shelters, and supplied medical provisions to patients in its clinics. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has reported that many families in the Gaza Strip remain exposed to harsh winter conditions without adequate shelter. In Deir el-Balah in central Gaza and in the north, an area besieged by the Israeli military for months, many residents are still living in tents and makeshift shelters that offer little to no protection from the cold. A spokesperson for UNICEF, Tess Ingram, has said that families in the north of Gaza have been shocked at the scale of destruction in the area. Ingram said in a video posted in X that the scale of destruction is especially traumatic for children who have already suffered so much. She added that they are returning to communities without water, health care, and other basic necessities needed to survive. Israeli media has reported that Qatar sent messages to both Israel and the United States warning that Israel's actions regarding the second phase of the deal, as well as provocative remarks by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are jeopardizing the first phase. Israeli media stated that negotiations for the second phase of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas have not yet begun, with internal Israeli discussions and talks between Hamas and mediators ongoing. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that under his plan for the United States to take control of Gaza, Palestinians would have no right to return to the territory. During an interview, Trump stated that safe communities would be built a little away from where they are, away from all this danger, according to him. He added that in the meantime, he would own this and referred to it as a real estate development for the future, calling it a beautiful piece of land.
I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding...
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that his commitment to gaining control over Gaza, suggesting that parts of the region could be rebuilt with the support of other Middle Eastern states. He described Gaza as a demolition site, claiming that there is nothing left to return to and that the remaining structures would also be torn down. Trump also indicated that he is open to accepting some Palestinian refugees into the United States, but emphasized that each case would be considered individually.
Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe.
Israeli government spokesman David Mencer has announced that Phase 2 discussions on a permanent ceasefire have begun in coordination with U.S. officials. Mencer stated that Israel's ultimate goal is a permanent ceasefire, but only under the conditions that Hamas is no longer in power, and Gaza is both demilitarized and de-radicalized. Regarding the Israeli military operation in the northern West Bank, he emphasized that Israel remains firm in ensuring there will be no safe haven for terrorists. Egypt has strongly condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent remarks in a U.S. media interview, calling them misleading and a misrepresentation of Egypt's humanitarian efforts in Gaza. In a statement, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry reaffirmed its commitment to aiding Palestinians, highlighting the delivery of over 5,000 relief trucks and ongoing support for the injured. Egypt also criticized Israel's continued violations against civilians and infrastructure, firmly rejecting any suggestions of displacing Palestinians to neighboring countries. Cairo reiterated its unwavering support for a two-state solution, emphasizing that East Jerusalem must remain the capital of a future Palestinian state. Lebanon has strongly condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's remarks suggesting the establishment of a Palestinian state on Saudi land. In an official statement, the Lebanese Foreign Ministry firmly rejected the proposal and reaffirmed its support for Saudi Arabia in safeguarding its sovereignty and security. Lebanon also dismissed any attempts to displace Palestinians, particularly to its own territory, and called for a just and comprehensive solution based on a two-state framework. The ministry emphasized that any resolution must align with international law and the 2002 Beirut Arab Summit initiative. And for more analysis, we now move to Hani Saif in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Hela. And for further analysis on the situation in Gaza, we're joined by Mr. Ahmed Fattouh, the spokesman from Ramallah of Fatah. Mr. Fattouh, thank you for joining us here on Qnews. Sir, can you tell us and elaborate on how you read Egypt's stance regarding Netanyahu's recent remarks on the displacement of Palestinians?
This is an honorable remark by Egypt and the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, because these declaration by Israel to displace the Palestinian people or by Trump is mad ideas that deserve an unified front by the Arab world and the international community to stop such madness from taking place. They are speaking as if the Palestinian people are cattle to move here and there, to move them away from their lands. This is refused and abhorrent. This is our land, this is our country, and our people who have suffered 76 years of occupation and colonization. On top of that, a genocide, deserve justice and freedom. Egypt's position is remarkable. It's humane. It's in support of the Palestinian people, just cause, in support of the Palestinian people, national cause, and the two-state solution. In fact, Egypt is protecting peace. An opposite to Netanyahu and the U.S. administration, who want to evoke war everywhere in the world. This is what is needed now. That this is the word of 194 countries. It's not the United States and Israel alone. And this talk about removing the Palestinian people from their lands and occupying Gaza and occupying the West Bank, ethnic cleansing campaigns in 2025 is absolute madness. And where that is going to lead us? That's going to lead us to more escalation. That is going to lead us to expanding the area of war to include the Arab countries as well. Palestine cause is a national cause and a Muslim cause, and it's also a just cause for 2 billion Muslims and 2 billion Christians, as well as those who defend the international law and the human rights.
Well, sir, what actions and what steps can Egypt take to ensure that Gaza remains a Palestinian territory? And can you shed light on Egypt's role in the humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza?
Of course, Egypt is playing a major role pressuring and asserting its political power and economical power to push Israel to accept the delivery of aid, and also to respect the international law through its international relations, through its significant role in the Middle East. As well, now we have heard the announcement of the Arab League meeting. That should also be the first step toward a unified Arab position. I hope that they would agree on a plan, a program to confront these mad plans, as well as to include the international community. The international community is as well not very satisfied or happy with such claims or such declarations, such plans by Israel and the United States.
Well, so what are the potential implications of Netanyahu's provocative comments on the Palestinian statehood?
Well, Netanyahu, coming from a far-right Zionist ideology that does not even recognize the existence of Palestinian people, he does not even recognize that they are human beings. He does not want to make a Palestinian state. He does not want to allow a Palestinian state to take place. From the very beginning of Netanyahu's career, it was to kill the two-state solution. It is Netanyahu followers and the far right that assassinated Rabin after signing Oslo. It is Netanyahu that crippled every effort to make a two-state solution take place. We have made a very clear position from the very beginning, and we have been honest with ourselves and with the international community, as well as the Arabs, when we have accepted 22% of our historical land as a major sacrifice to end the cycle of violence, to get to find peace and end all kind of violence. And we have accepted the Arab Peace Initiative, which states that all the Arab states is going to normalize their relations and build economical relations with Israel. In return, they would allow the Palestinian state to take place on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. On the other hand, Israel has met this offer, this generous offer by the Palestinians, by the Arabs, by settlements, by genocide, by killing, by war, by a cycle of deception and delusion and all kind of unhonest and indecent politics. They evoked several wars in Gaza. They are expanding their colonialism, settler colonialism in the West Bank. They are, violating the human rights every day, in every way possible, crossing every red line that the humanity has put for our decent principles. So it's clear who is against peace, and
yes,
now
well,
role to pressure to bring the peace forward.
Well, Mr. Fattouh, how does Egypt respond to plans to counter the recent U.S. initiatives regarding Gaza's future in light of Egypt's foreign minister's visit to Washington, D.C.?
Now, the U.S. administration is under, a propaganda by the Zionist line. Unfortunately, he's surrounded by advisors who belong to the religious Zionist line of thought. I hope Egypt could be able to enlighten President Trump about the facts on the grounds, about the history, about the consequences of such plans to eliminate or drive away the Palestinians from their lands, because that is going to only escalate the issue further, as we have said. Also, Egypt has strong relations with the Arab countries and also strong relations with the international community in order to push and assert the pressure that these plans are not going to serve anyone. I believe the U.S. administration, if they hear from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and hear from the King of Jordan, as well as from the other Arab countries, he might change his mind. And also, we have a UN resolution that states clearly that this is an illegal occupation. What they are providing is, a total attack and collapse to the entire international order. That is not going to serve anyone. This is going to lead us into the law of the jungle.
Mr. Fattouh, one last question. How does Egypt intend to address the challenges of protecting the Palestinian rights amid the ongoing Israeli actions and trying to sustain the current Gaza ceasefire?
As we hear from the news, that they are trying every measure possible by leading talks with the Israelis, with the mediators, with the Qataris, with the Saudis, and trying to maintain the peace and the ceasefire. Now, Israel's dream is to stop this ceasefire and escalate the war further. Now they are already leading a genocidal war against the Palestinians in the West Bank. More than 50,000 Palestinians has been displaced from their land. They are also killing and shooting in Gaza, despite that there is a ceasefire and a truce. They want war. This is a regime that thrives on war and terror. Now we need the rational voices to stand up and be clear to confront such madness. Egypt is one of these rational voices. The world now is forming a consensus that what is going on in Gaza, what's going on in Palestine, is going to only drive the world into more escalation that is going to be have consequences and reiterate to the entire region and therefore to the entire world.
From Ramallah, that was the Fatah spokesperson, Mr. Ahmed Fattouh. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Ladies and gentlemen, now we resume our news bulletin. Back to you, Hela.
Thank you very much, Hani. Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid has launched a petition campaign to gather signatures aiming to pressure Netanyahu's government into establishing an inquiry into the Hamas-led attacks of October 7, 2023. Before a Knesset meeting, Lapid told reporters that the Israeli cabinet's decision to postpone the inquiry was an attempt to bury it. He argued that by delaying it for another 3 months, the government was signaling that no one at the political level was guilty or responsible for the events of October 7th and that they don't want the public to know the truth.
Support of the people of Israel, and the deal has the overwhelming support.
Many displaced Palestinians have expressed outrage at U.S. President Donald Trump's recent remarks to having the U.S. take ownership of Gaza. Palestinians emphasized that Gaza is not a commodity to be claimed or traded. Palestinians vowed to never leave Gaza and rejected any notion of displacement or foreign ownership. Trump said that he was committed to buying and owning Gaza, but could allow sections of the war-ravaged land to be built by other states in the Middle East. In Lebanon, the Lebanese army has completed its deployment in the towns of Rab al-Thalathin, Tallusa, and Bani Hayyan following the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the area. Lebanese soldiers have been conducting patrols, clearing dirt barriers and rubble from the roads. The army has also begun searching for bombs and unexploded ordnance. in residential areas and along roads, urging residents to wait for clearance before returning home. Meanwhile, despite a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah requiring an Israeli withdrawal, the Israeli military continues to occupy other parts of southern Lebanon. Syria's transitional president, Ahmed al-Shara, has announced that thousands of volunteers have joined the newly formed Syrian National Army following dissolution of his military and security forces. Al-Shara stated that recruitment remains voluntary, avoiding the compulsory conscription imposed by the previous regime. He noted that many young men had fled Syria to escape forced military service. Shara has also renewed calls for the removal of Western sanctions, stating that economic growth is key to stabilizing Syria and preventing further insecurity. In Tehran, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has questioned the United States' sincerity in engaging with Iran in negotiations while simultaneously imposing sanctions. His remarks come in response to the reinstatement of former U.S. President Donald Trump's maximum pressure policy. Pezeshkian criticized Washington's stance, asserting that Israel, not Iran, is the primary source of instability in the Middle East, sustained by U.S. support. He emphasized that Iran will not succumb to foreign pressure and is prepared to overcome its challenges independently. While reaffirming that Tehran does not seek conflict, he made it clear that Iran will resist economic warfare. In France, world leaders and technology executives have gathered in Paris to discuss the safe adoption of artificial intelligence amid growing global concerns. Momentum to regulate AI has slowed since previous summits in Britain and South Korea, where world powers focused on the technology's risks following ChatGPT's viral debut in 2022. Meanwhile, some European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, are advocating for greater flexibility in the EU's new AI Act to support homegrown startups and foster innovation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this summit is a moment of...
Moving to Russia, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has said that there was not yet any agreement with the United States on high-level contacts between President Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump. Speaking at a news briefing in Moscow, Ryabkov also said that the outlook for Russia-US talks on nuclear strategic stability did not look promising. But Ryabkov said that the U.S. wanted three-way arms talks, including China, while Moscow wanted five-way arms talks. Russia has said that it wants Britain and France, also nuclear powers, to be included in any new arms control talks. Meanwhile, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has stated that all of President Vladimir Putin's conditions for ending the conflict in Ukraine must be met before any settlement is possible. Ryabkov stated that the sooner the United States and the West recognize that all of Putin's conditions must be met, the sooner a settlement in Ukraine can be reached. On June 14, Putin outlined his terms for an immediate end to the war. Ukraine must abandon its NATO ambitions and withdraw its troops from the entirety of 4 Ukrainian regions that Russia claims and largely controls. Moving on to Iraq, where Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani has reaffirmed that his government is handling regional developments with wisdom, making decisive choices while avoiding rash decisions. He emphasized that Iraq's balanced approach has helped shield the country from external threats and conflicts. Sudani urged tribal leaders to take an active role in resolving disputes, upholding state sovereignty, and contributing to national progress. He also called for greater collaboration with security forces to ensure justice and strengthen national security. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. Israeli settlers perform rituals at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound under protection from armed forces. Israeli opposition leader launches petition to pressure Netanyahu's government for inquiry into October 7th, 2023 attacks. Lebanese army deploys in Rabb al-Thalathin, Tallusa and Bani Hayyan after Israeli withdrawal. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.